Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Tooth and Claw. On this one, we were lucky enough to get Sammy Smart from Too Scary Didn't Watch to come back on our show, which was really very nice of her to do for us after what we subjected her to last time with the whole leech episode that we did last year. We wanted to give a quick shout out to her show, Too Scary Didn't Watch, which for our money is the best scary movie podcast out there. So check that out if it sounds interesting to you. Wes has made a couple of guest appearances on it and we love it. She's great. She's the best. Her and her two friends are great. Speaking of scary movies, Wes and I have actually been working on a small little project over on Patreon about all the scary movies that we've been watching, and we turned it into a little 4-part video series that you can check out over there if you want to subscribe for that content. We talk about some of the best and some of the worst scary movies that we've been watching this Halloween season. And for you Apple Grizz Club subscribers, don't worry, we're making a supercut of that. And we'll post all of that to that feed once we have everything finalized. And we had a lot of fun with it. And what Jeff actually, speaking of guest appearances, Jeff is going to be on episode 4 of that. But anyway, as usual, I've been talking too much. Let's get to the episode. Here we go.
Hello listeners, welcome back to another episode of Tooth and Claw podcast. We have our wildlife biologist, Wes Larson.
I'm here.
Our producer, Mike Smith.
What's up?
And I'm Jeff Larson, also Wes's little brother. And then we
My
have...
littlest brother.
Well, your only little brother.
So you're the littlest.
Sure, yeah. And the biggest.
And yeah, true.
And we have a guest, Sammy, with us.
Hello.
Hi,
Too
Sammy.
Scary Didn't
Hi.
Watch.
Scream Queen, Sammy.
That's me.
I've had like 3 concussions in my life, and I know that we had you on once, but I kind of forget
Leeches.
everything. So go ahead and let us know again what you do and who you are.
I host a horror movie podcast called Too Scary Didn't Watch. Wes has been a guest a couple times. We've covered Cocaine Bear, we covered Anaconda, and what was the one we just did?
The Reef.
The Reef. So
I'm a horror-spondent.
he's a horror-spondent now. That's the official title we give to guests that come 3 times.
Nice.
I like that.
And yeah, we couldn't be happier to have you as a horror-spondent.
Likewise on our show.
I was here for the Leeches episode, heard some very disgusting stories last year, and
Sammy, I'm so sorry.
I can't wait to
We got
see
another
what you
one.
got in store for me today.
We got another one. I was thinking about this all day because for whatever reason, both of the episodes that you've guested on have like just kind of turned into my most horrific stories.
You know,
And
I feel good about that, to be honest
you're
with
here
you.
for it.
I'm
All right.
here
Yeah.
for it. I feel prepared. I'm honestly wouldn't want it any other way.
Okay, perfect.
No, we appreciated, you kind of started leaning into the microphone when he started talking about leeches in the anus. You're like
Yeah.
more into it than any of us
Yeah.
even. So we're glad you're back.
Tinted her hands.
How far in the anus?
Okay.
Correspondent is a good one for you today, Wes. Since you were on, weren't you on like Chicago News?
I was on the Chicago Morning Show this morning,
Ooh.
WGN
Yeah.
Morning Show. They had
What,
some good
they wanted
questions.
you to talk about horror movies?
Bears, sharks, no horror movies, unfortunately.
Did you have that sexy werewolf background for...
I didn't have sexy werewolf.
Real
behind
missed
me.
opportunity.
I really should have, though. I definitely should have had that and just never explained it. That would have been better. But no, I didn't have that, unfortunately. Sammy, I was going to say we've been doing these trips with listeners, and a lot of them have said that they found us through Too Scary Didn't Watch, which is just great.
Oh, that's really sweet.
We love having buddies in the podcast world, so it's fun.
As do
that-
we. I'm happy to have shared listeners with you guys. I'm sure they're all wonderful, beautiful people.
They
well
were.
adjusted.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far. I bet you there's like a few really bad people who listen.
Probably. Yeah.
To say all of them are really good, I don't know.
Especially
true.
the ones that are really into the leech episode. They're like, definitely bad people. Well, great. We might as well just get into it. It's kind of a longer episode today.
Okay.
And I'm just going to run you guys through what kind of happened with this episode. Around Halloween, we like to do animals that are kind of associated with Halloween. I said creepy for the Black Mamba episode, and I immediately regretted that because I don't think they're a creepy animal at all. I think they're beautiful and wonderful, and snakes in general are, but they're associated with Halloween. So that's why we said creepy. And this is another one. I wanted to do an episode about wolves, and then I thought, oh, last time we had Sammy on, we did leeches and we talked about vampires. So I'm going to talk about werewolves and then get into wolves. And this is mostly an episode about werewolves because everything I found just led me to another tangent, and they are horrific things. And I learned that the lore and the actual clinical stuff around werewolves is kind of crazy and pretty disgusting and like hypersexual, and just there's like every trigger warning we could have, we should probably attach to this episode.
Great.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mike, we've talked about werewolves a little bit when you did your Beast of, how do you say that word?
Gévaudan.
Gévaudan, yes. We brought them up a bit. That was an incident that's thought to be a werewolf.
Very, very sexual. We had to pause
Yeah.
a couple of times during recording, fan ourselves off a little.
Yeah. We were
I
getting
think. I don't remember.
a little too worked up.
Unbutton our shirt a bit.
Yeah.
Well, just you wait. Yeah, anyway, so there are a few monsters that I think have been in just our collective consciousness throughout history, and werewolves are definitely one of them. And they can be found throughout different cultures. And I think in popular culture, they really hit their stride in the Middle Ages, but there's records of werewolves that go far older than that. Indigenous cultures believed in like were animals that were often the result of someone getting involved in witchcraft or the occult, and they would terrorize people in the night. So there's like were tigers in India, were hyenas and were lions in Africa, and then were pumas and were jaguars in South America, which is pretty cool, if you ask me. I like that there's so many different were animals out there. I feel like True Blood kind of dipped into that a tiny bit with like were panthers or something.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I feel like I've been cheated of more kinds of were.
Cheetah'd?
Cheetah-id. Were cheetah-id of different kinds of were movies. This is interesting.
Unexplored territory, fertile
Yeah.
ground for.
Yeah.
I agree.
People need to get into it. They all had their own unique names in different cultures. Each came with its own history and folklore, but they were people that had decided to align themselves with the occult and had traded some of their human soul for that of an animal. And it's really interesting to me that the animal that's often associated with this is the one that like was their biggest threat. Like in India, it was tigers. In South America, it was jaguars. In Africa, it's like tigers and hyenas, or not tigers, sorry, lions and hyenas. And this thing is called lycanthropy. Lycanthropy is when you have this belief that you're turning into a different animal, or you've turned into a different animal, and it's a human transforming into it. This happens to Jeff when he's hangry. It happens to Mike when you shush him. These are things
Oh man.
that
Don't.
we've seen happen between the three of us. Me when Jeff says he's a biologist. Anyway.
I pretty much am.
You're doing those animal facts on TikTok, so that's close enough.
Oh yeah, they did pretty good. So
Cool.
I took like my first Adderall in 4 months, and I was like, let's do 100 TikTok videos. Now I'm stuck.
Which I love. Yeah, I love it. I've been having fun watching them, Jeff. I don't look at TikTok, and I have been because
You've been
enjoyed
liking
your
them?
TikToks. I've been liking them.
I
I've
appreciate
literally
it.
been liking them. Sammy, have you liked his TikToks yet?
I'm not on TikTok. I have successfully managed to avoid it, and I
Yeah.
feel like I want to preserve that for myself. So
Stay strong.
I'm really sorry,
Yeah.
Jeff, but I'm not going to be liking them. But if I did
No, I mean,
have
you're
TikTok,
probably a little too old for it.
you
Whoa.
exactly. Thank you, Jeff.
I mean, I'm like, no cap, but
Jeff uses Gen Z
Wow.
phrasing now.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
are young in spirit.
Yeah, we
I'm
all know.
easily-
I'm
We
just
all know what
kidding.
it means. We all know what that means.
I have a TikTok, but I've never posted to it, and I'm a very rare user.
I tried
of
to
it.
make a TikTok once. This is when I was
Yeah.
on TikTok, and very on brand for me. It was about how much I hated mosquitoes.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, wow.
It took me like 4 hours to make. It was 20 seconds long and made
how
me
many
so
views
mad.
is it at?
Probably like 55.
Oh man, I'm gonna
All right.
start sharing it.
I like the idea of you leveraging your Too Scary Didn't Watch audience into just a social media platform solely to debate
Trash
mosquitoes. Yeah, that's like all you use it for.
Yeah.
I think you should start it up again.
I'm really passionate about it.
Someday I'm going to convince you that they're not all bad, but we'll get to that later. We'll have you on for our mosquito episode.
Okay, great.
Some of the very first writings we have dealing with werewolves and lycanthropy are from the ancient Greeks. Herodotus, who we all know and love, in his histories.
Herodotus.
Yep, thank you, Mike. He talked about a tribe in Scythia that turned into wolves every year for a couple days and then reverted back to humans. And he was pretty dubious that this actually happened, but he says everyone in that tribe swears that it did. And then there's a really cool story that I liked. It's about King Lycon, which I have to imagine lycanthropy comes from this king's name. Anyway, he lived in a city that Zeus visited, and Zeus showed up and was like doing all this godly shit, doing miracles and stuff. And this King Lycon was like, I don't believe that he's Zeus. I don't believe that he's a god. And I know how I'm going to trick him. Kills a kid, a prisoner, on an altar.
Great trick.
Yeah, always gets caught.
First thing that comes to my mind when I think about, tricks and pranks.
And he tries to feed the flesh of this kid and this kid's entrails to Zeus. And Zeus is immediately like, no way, I'm not eating that. I'm Zeus. I know what you're up to here.
I've seen this trick before.
Yeah. You're not getting me with this again. And turns him into a wolf and scares him off. So that was King Lycon. It's a cautionary tale.
Ate the kid, then he's not Zeus.
Yeah, because gods don't eat kids. Yeah, exactly. He knew that it was
gods don't eat kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for Jupiter.
But people love eating kids.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Anyway. It was like no one eats kids, but like a mere mortal wouldn't know it was a kid, but like, Zeus would.
Honestly, I kind of think Zeus would have a better chance of eating a kid than just like some random person.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
Like, I don't know what Zeus is up to. I know what most people are.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's other stories in ancient Greece of men that would turn into wolves because of misdeeds. But then if they refused to eat human flesh while they were wolves, they would be able to turn back into men after like 9 years. And some of those men would turn into like Olympic athletes because they still had some of that wolves power inside of them.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd do that. If they were like, hey, you just got to be 9 years as a wolf and you'll be like super fast when you come back.
It'd be sweet if we still had that like ingrained in us too. And we just like thought LeBron James used to be a wolf or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Early Christianity also included myths about werewolves. They were almost always associated with witchcraft and the devil. But as I mentioned earlier, it didn't really become popularized until the Middle Ages. And then they really became a big thing for a while. It was like a major threat to people throughout Europe, especially. It was a great time.
Were legitimately afraid of werewolves.
Yeah, and when like people would turn up dead and maimed, they would just think, "Oh, this was probably a werewolf." You know, It was a time of great religious upheaval, mixing of different cultures, and the myth of werewolves became a little bit more nuanced too. For example, Viking cultures believed in berserkers that could take the skin of a bear and channel the power and ferocity of that animal in battle. And then they also had people called Ulfhednar, which was the same idea but with wolves. So they would wear wolf skins into battle, and they thought they could channel the ferocity of like a wolf or a bear.
Werebear?
Yeah,
that's
fun. A werebear, exactly. So these ones weren't necessarily a negative thing. It was kind of like they were assuming their power. And there's also some other examples throughout the Middle Ages of like more romantic werewolves. Jacobs, if you will.
I will.
I will, yeah.
Yeah. So this one I really liked. There's a popular poem written by Marie de France in the 1100s called Bisclarvet. In this poem, Bisclarvet is a baron in Brittany, France, that's well loved by the king. And he disappears for 3 days every week, and no one, including his wife, knows where he's going or what's happening. And finally, she breaks down and she like begs him, "Hey, where are you going for 3 days every week? Like, why won't you tell me?" And he finally tells her. And he says for 3 days every week, he turns into a werewolf, and he has to find a safe place to hide his clothes because he needs them to turn back into a human. And she's disgusted.
She's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe you.
Yeah.
She does.
Oh,
She believes him
so you're not
immediately.
going out to cheat on me. Okay.
No, yeah, exactly. He's like, that's why I have these claw marks all over me. She's disgusted because she's like, I've been sleeping with an animal. And there's this knight who has the hots for her. And she tells him about the werewolf thing. And the knight then goes and steals Bisclavet's clothes on his next transformation. So he never comes back, and people just assume that he finally left for good. The knight marries his wife, and they become the new barons of this estate. One day, the king's out hunting, and he's about to kill a wolf when one of them runs up to the king and starts licking his feet and acting really noble. So the king and all his buddies are like, oh, let's take this wolf home. Let's make a pet out of it. This is pretty cool that this wolf is so tame. And it's
Is feet
extremely...
licking like a sign of nobility?
Yeah, dude, come on. You know
I'm not part of the aristocracy.
It's the most
so I guess
noble
I don't
thing
know.
you can do, Mike.
Okay. That scene in Talk to Me all of a sudden means something a little different.
So this wolf is extremely well behaved until one day the king invites all his barons to come to his castle for a feast. And when the wolf sees the knight, who's now the baron, he attacks him viciously. And because the wolf has never attacked anyone before, they're kind of like, there must have been something up with this knight and the wolf, so we're going to leave
Had
it be.
Steak in his pockets or something.
Yeah, or they had beef or whatever. Exactly. Not long after
As
this
one does.
king, the king visits the area where Bisclavet, I'm saying it wrong, but that's kind of how it's spelled, used to live, and his ex-wife brings a bunch of gifts to the king, and Bisclavet, the wolf, immediately attacks her and rips her nose off. And now people are like, we got to kill this wolf. But this wise guy's like, wait, he's only ever attacked her and her husband, so something fishy's going on. So the king tortures the wife, which you do, and she confesses. So they then bring Bisclavet his clothes, and he refuses to turn back into a man. And then they will put his clothes in a room, and so he goes and turns back into himself. And the king is really glad to see him. He gives him a bunch of kisses, and he restores his previous rights. And the wife and the knight are exiled, and all of their future children are born ugly with fucked up noses because she got her nose bit off.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it immediately becomes a genetic disorder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
That's how genetics works.
Anyway, that was the most romantic thing I could find about werewolves in my studies, aside from Twilight. But
Yeah.
There's some, I can think of a few werewolves more romantic than that.
I guess besides this, my background as
You
well.
mean like the king and the guy at the end kissing?
It
all
was
the
just like a
kisses.
beautiful, it was a fairy tale.
The
You know,
feet
it was
licking.
like
It was a beautiful fairy
Yeah.
tale.
the werewolf wasn't bad in it. Everything else, the werewolves were bad. All right. Well, fear of wolves and werewolves in Europe probably hit its peak during the 1300s and during the Black Plague. Bodies were littering the streets, and it wasn't uncommon to see wolves, real wolves, in town eating dead bodies. And I think if you see enough of that, it's not a big jump to start hating wolves and coming up with myths about wolves, about diseases and curses. Some of the most horrific stories of wolves feeding on and attacking people in Europe came from the 1300s and the 1400s because of these diseases and the way they disposed of bodies. So wolves really had become quite the problem, real wolves. We're going to talk about that more when we talk about wolves in this episode.
I was just curious what the difference of a werewolf and a real wolf is.
Yeah, one's super sexy and the other one's an animal. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the main
That's-
thing.
One's
That's the main-
totally jacked,
Yeah.
just so swole.
Yeah,
If you shoot
that's
one with
mostly
a silver bullet, it'll die, and probably also the other. So you can't
Yeah,
really
they
tell
both.
from that.
Yeah, that's not enough to distinguish the two. Yeah. Anyway, I want to do a separate subscriber episode about some of these clashes between like wolves and people in medieval Europe, but we're not going to talk too much about that today. In the 1500s, 1600s, and 1700s, the fear of werewolves started to die down in parts of Europe like France, but it was getting stronger in the Holy Roman Empire. Germany was part of that, and they were a hot spot for tales about werewolves. And one of the most famous werewolf stories, and one of our main stories today, happened in Germany in the late 1500s. It's wild, it's very graphic, it involves some really horrific human violence. So if you don't want to listen to that, we'll put a timestamp in for you to skip to.
Oh boy.
All right. So Peter Stubb was a wealthy farmer in the community of Bedburg, near Cologne, Germany. During that time, the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church were warring in the area. And there's a lot of hardship placed on the rural people that were simply trying to just get by. These warriors would come by and raid their crops or kill them or kill their livestock or whatever. It was a hard time to be a farmer. But Peter had seemed to rise above that. He had a good standing in town among his neighbors. He's a widower with 2 adolescent kids, and he seemed like a normal, nice, wealthy guy that everyone liked. And his name might be recorded as Peter Stumpp because he was missing his left hand, so everyone called him Stumpp, which is really funny.
You think?
Yeah. Even back then, the Germans had a cold sense of humor.
So his kids are not going to have hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like
Kids
the
were all
noses.
born. Yeah. But Peter wasn't just a normal guy. He's a werewolf.
Oh,
Since the age of 12, he'd been fascinated with black magic, and he had traded his soul to the devil in exchange for a belt made of black wolf fur. And when he placed that belt on his body, he would transform into a werewolf. He'd go out in the countryside, and he'd perform acts of violence that are extreme by any standards, even today's.
You got to get more than that out of that Faustian bargain, I feel. More than just a belt.
I want to turn into a wolf. Yeah, the devil can give you anything, and that's what
Yeah.
you decide you want. I don't know. He just really wanted to be a wolf, I guess.
or maybe that was like one of his only options.
Yeah, the devil
Yeah.
just gave him like 2 choices.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
multiple choice.
Yeah.
You get to be a wolf or a snail. It's up to you,
Right.
Peter. Yeah.
Ooh, tough.
Anyway, when he turned into a wolf, he described it as the likeness of a greedy, devouring wolf, strong and mighty, with eyes great and large, which in the night sparkled like brands of fire, a mouth great and wide, with most sharp and cruel teeth, a huge body, and mighty paws. So first, local farmers started noticing missing livestock. They'd find cattle go.
So he would
Yeah.
get his hand back.
He actually didn't, and we'll get into that. He got 3 paws, but not the other one.
I see.
They would notice missing livestock. They'd find cattle, goats, and sheep out in their pastures, ripped open and torn apart by some animal. And again, this isn't myth. This is like a historical record that they wrote and then was like rediscovered in the 1920s about this guy. Wolves were the main suspect for these farmers, but as people started to disappear then, many of the residents of Bedburg started to wonder if maybe a werewolf was actually terrorizing their community. Children would disappear from their homes and yards. Young women walking alone were vanishing. Sometimes the victims would be found, their bodies mutilated and hardly recognizable, and sometimes they disappeared altogether. So over a number of years, dozens of people and livestock fell victim to this werewolf, and no one but Peter Stumpp knew the truth of what was happening. One day, they found a number of human limbs in a pasture, and the townspeople had had enough, and they vowed to kill any wolves that they found in the area. So they started this hunt, and they hunted for days before they found a wolf that they thought was responsible for the killing. It took them a long time to finally corner this wolf, and as they cornered it and rode up on it, they didn't find a wolf, but they found Peter Stumpp.
That's surprising.
Yeah. So either he... Yeah. Anyway, they couldn't believe that he was a werewolf, so they marched him to his house thinking that maybe it was like a Peter Stumpp impersonator or like an evil spirit that was pretending to be him. But at his house, they realized like, no, this is actually Peter Stumpp, and he's this werewolf.
So they were following him as a wolf, and then once
Yeah.
they got him to a spot, it was just Peter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a chance that like he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Like the wolf disappeared and he was
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
But we're gonna get
Or
into
he
that.
was a werewolf. We don't know.
Or they just, or something weird happened. But they finally confirmed that it was actually him because they reported that the wolf they had been chasing was missing a left paw and Peter was missing his left hand.
Oh, compelling evidence.
He was arrested and tortured on a rack until he finally confessed his crimes. We're going to put a big old pin in that point that he was tortured. What he confessed to was really horrific. And I'm not going to go into all of the details here, but I am going to go over some of them. There is some sexual assault and some cannibalism, so just get ready for that. He confessed to the murder of 14 children and 2 pregnant women. The women he claimed to have ripped the fetuses out of their bodies, which he ate, and called dainty morsels. He killed some of the children by bludgeoning them and ripping out their throats, and it's thought that he consumed some of their entire bodies, and that's why they couldn't find some of these victims. He also confessed to killing his son while out on a trip in the woods. He said he loved his son very much and he had resisted this werewolf urge to kill him for many years. But finally, the werewolf won. He put on his belt and killed his son and ate his brains. He also confessed to an incestuous relationship with his daughter while he was the werewolf and a relationship with another close relative. Whew. He told the court that he was a werewolf and he had been in league with Satan pretty much his whole life. And he told them where they could find the magic belt, but it was never found. He also confessed to having sex with the demon succubus, which, if you're a werewolf, you might as well.
Yeah. You gone this far.
Right. He's convicted of all these murders, as well as witchcraft, as well as incest. He's sentenced to death.
I don't really like this guy anymore.
No.
That sounds like a real jerk.
Yeah. Yeah, he's mean. I think we
What's
should
the
rewind,
sentence
though.
for sleeping with a succubus? It's like, what do they care,
Yeah, you're going to see what a sentence is. It's not pleasant.
Oh, boy.
Sure. We're going to rewind, though, to that little tidbit that we had pinned. We'll unpin it. He was tortured for a long time on a rack, which is like very violent, terrible
Usually makes
torture.
people tell the truth, I thought.
Yeah, which means he told the truth, 100%.
Kind of undeniably. They have to tell the truth if they're being tortured.
Yeah,
Everybody
exactly.
knows that.
This is
Everybody,
ironclad.
see, that's the thing, Sammy. Everybody knows that. So the second my skin touches the rack, I'm like, tell me what to confess to. I'll let you know.
Yes, it is.
Here
the
we
truth,
go. Just
God's
end it.
truth. I have listened to enough podcasts, watched enough shows of people being forced into confessions just by being interrogated for 24 hours by modern police. There's a lot that you can do to a person to make them to confess to just about anything. And to me, torturing on the rack seems like one of those things. But who knows? I also think there's a good chance this guy was a serial killer and they caught him. I think it could be either or. So we're going to pretend that he was a serial killer because his matter of death was terrible.
I like just the questioning, thinking of that, though. Hey,
Yeah.
admit that you were that wolf killing everyone.
Yeah.
And he's like,
It's like, what?
Wait, what? And then they stab him enough times that he's like, I was the wolf killing everyone.
What else did you do? I had sex with a succubus.
Oh, well, that's not that bad.
There was a little bit more evidence, too. There was one girl that had escaped this murderer, and she was wearing a high collar, and he had grabbed her by the neck and tried to rip out her throat, but the collar had stopped him. And then some cows that she had been guarding stampeded and got in the way, and he ran off. But she couldn't positively identify who this killer was. But it does at least show that there was someone out there that was killing kids.
And
this
it
wasn't
wasn't
a wolf.
like a wolf man.
Right. It could have been. Yeah. You never know. We're just going to say that's a possibility. We're going to pretend he was a serial killer because on October 28th, 1589, he was strapped to a wheel. And then 10 red-hot pincers were used to remove flesh from his body in 10 different places. His arms and his legs were broken with the blunt head of an axe. And then finally, mercifully in my opinion, his head was chopped off. 3 days later, on October 31st, so Halloween, his daughter
That's
and
how
his
you let the demons out of someone too. If he was possessed,
chopping
you
the head
gotta
off.
cut the head off so that the demon has a way out.
They
You
come
are
out through
our
the neck.
resident demonologist. Yeah. So 3 days later, on Halloween, our modern Halloween, his daughter and his mistress were both burned at the stake, along with Peter's body, because they had been convicted of incest, which seems
No.
unfair to me.
That's tough.
That's not fair.
Super
Yeah.
unfair.
A pole was erected on the spot, and the wheel where he was killed was placed on this pole, a statue of a wolf on top of the wheel, and then his head on a spike on top of the wolf. It was a reminder to anyone, hey, don't make deals with Satan.
It's kind of creative.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they had 16 strips of wood for all of his victims too, which they
Wasn't
had
that the
a nice artist.
Vlad the Impaler move? He came later, right? Maybe he stole that move, putting the head
I
on
think
the
he was
spike.
was he 1400s? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I just watched Dracula, I should know. All right. So that's the story of one of the most famous werewolves in history. There were many others, including the Beast of Guduvan, or however you say it, Mike. I'm not going to go into those. What I am going to go into is very unfortunate. It's a quick discussion of clinical lycanthropy. So clinical lycanthropy is a psychiatric condition that's often associated with...
Oh, God. This is worse than leeches.
It's worse. It's like associated with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or multiple personality disorder. It's in the DSM. Yeah.
You're making our guest uncomfortable.
I know. I'm sorry. It's back, guys. This
She's
is
never coming back. Oh.
I'm sorry, Sammy. I don't know why this happens. I didn't mean for this to be such a disgusting episode, but it is. It's a delusion that a person can transform into, has transformed into, or currently is an animal. It's a rare condition, but there are some interesting case studies of people with clinical lycanthropy. 49-year-old woman.
There were like cases of them having that weren't interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a boring one. Yeah. I think that's just what you call furries, right?
Their therapist is like, whatever. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Just a wolf? Oh, okay. There's a 49-year-old woman in one of these papers. It's called A Case of Lycanthropy by Harvey A. Rosenstock and Kenneth R. Vincent that suffered from lycanthropy in the 70s. And these are some excerpts from one of the papers they wrote about her. The following night, after a coitus with her husband, the patient suffered a 2-hour episode, during which time she growled, scratched, and gnawed at the bed. She stated the devil came into her body and she became an animal. Simultaneously, she experienced auditory hallucinations. There's no drug involvement or alcoholic intoxication. Just sounds like they're having a good time to me, you know? Things got a little out of
bad
hand.
one.
Just gnawing on the bed.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like a little gnawing on the bed here and there?
Notching the
Some
bedpost.
splinters. Yeah. That's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what this woman experienced, but she really fully believed she was turning into a wolf. There's a paper in 2004 that was a clinical review of over 30 cases of lycanthropy. They found that wolves and dogs were the most common animals people turned into, but there were other animals too. Hyenas, cats, birds, horses, tigers, frogs, snakes, and bees were all animals that people claimed they'd turned into. Turning into bees sounds crazy to me.
Yeah, like, are you a group of bees or just like one
Yeah.
bee?
Are you like buzzing around and collecting pollen? Like, what are you doing as a bee? I don't know. Stinging people? Yeah.
Well, there's that movie about it.
Bee movie?
Yeah.
I don't think that's what that is.
Isn't
But-
he pretty much just a bee that acts like a human?
Isn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
Like
Sure.
it's sequel to Seinfeld where he just turns into a bee.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I need to watch that movie again. I remember it
Again?
vividly. Yeah.
I haven't ever seen it.
They actually did brain imaging on some of these people, and they found that the part of their brain associated with their body image was doing some really wonky stuff. So it's likely that the people with this condition actually perceive their body going through these changes. It's not just a delusion it is just in their head, but like your brain can make you see things and do things, and their brains are actually doing that to them.
I hate that.
There's 2 quick stories about clinical lycanthropy that I am compelled to tell, although I'd rather not, but I'm going to tell them.
Compelled?
Yeah,
By the devil,
August,
probably.
by the devil. The devil has entered me and compelled me to tell these stories.
He must have had sex with a werewolf or something.
Or that. What was the one? What did he have sex with? The werewolf guy?
Succubus?
A succubus.
A
He probably had
succubus.
sex with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just put on my magic belt here. So the first was on August 15th, 2016, just north of Jupiter, Florida. Of course, this was in Florida. Authorities responded to calls from neighbors when they saw a man beating 59-year-old John Stevens and his wife, 53-year-old Michelle Mishkon, outside their home on southeast Kokomo Lane. When the cops arrived, this 19-year-old man, who was the perpetrator, later identified as Austin Haroof, was sitting on the body of John Stevens while gnawing at his face, eating pieces of flesh, and making growling sounds.
Oof.
Even after they tased him, kicked him, and threatened to shoot him, he continued biting his victim. They finally subdued him with the help of a police dog, which is kind of ironic, but I'm not going to get into that too much. After they subdued him, they found the body of Michelle in the garage. She'd also been severely beaten and bloodied. Both would die from their injuries. In the weeks leading up to this, Austin had been telling his family that he believed he was half horse or half dog. He said the evil spirits were trying to possess him and that he felt superhuman strength and speed of animals. And the night of the attack, he left a bar. He was heading home when he thought he saw an evil spirit trying to attack him. And he saw Michelle and John's garage lit up because Michelle would use it as like a space to entertain people. He ran there for safety. When she saw him, she started screaming, and he thought she was a witch, and he attacked her. And then her husband, John, showed up. He'd been walking their dog, showed up to this violent scene, and Austin began attacking him. When they arrested him and took him to the hospital, he complained his stomach was hurting, and he said he had eaten something bad. And they asked him what it was, and he said humans.
PCP. Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't. They actually found no drugs in his system, and he was declared not guilty by reason of insanity.
No way.
Yeah, he does seem like he'd gone insane. All right, sorry for this one. A 25-year-old was sent to treatment. I'm just going to read this one straight from Wikipedia. A 25-year-old man was sent to treatment during a period of excessive hand-washing, irritable behavior, decreased sleep, and acting like a buffalo. The patient reported that he had engaged in sexual activity with a buffalo and believed that buffalo cells had entered his body and were transforming him into a buffalo. He began obsessively washing his hands and genitals in order to avoid the transition. He saw himself as having buffalo body parts and became preoccupied about his appearance. He then began to act as a buffalo by nodding his head, crawling on all fours, and seeking out hay and grass to eat. He's ultimately
so far,
diagnosed.
It's kind of cute.
There's one very uncute part in that story for me. He was ultimately diagnosed with obsessive compulsive body dysmorphic disorder and with delusional beliefs. He's treated. After 6 months of pharmacotherapy, his body dysmorphia and hand washing were reduced. Okay. That's all we're going to talk about werewolves for a little bit. We're going to talk about real, very persecuted, very misunderstood animal counterparts to werewolves, the gray wolf. Let's leave werewolves. I'm happy to leave them behind.
Thank God.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I prefer my werewolves to just like play high school basketball.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. So gray wolves are found throughout North America, Europe, and Asia, one of the most widespread predators on the planet. We have a complex relationship with them. On one hand,
where are they?
North America, Europe, and Asia, and throughout the Middle East, too. We've turned them into our best friends, which we talked about recently, and our lifelong companions. Yeah, pugs. But then they're also kind of seen as our greatest enemy in the natural world and our biggest threat. And that's kind of been throughout history. Wolves have kind of been the villain in the natural world. Like they're the villain in our fairy tales. They're the villain in a lot of our stories. We have had this very antagonistic relationship with wolves. And we've talked a fair amount about them on the podcast and how they really don't attack people much at all. And that's true, especially in North America. And one fear of mine in this episode is giving them the wrong name because we're going to talk about a scary story involving wolves. But they really don't do much. And I actually called my friend Kira Cassidy, who's one of the wolf biologists in Yellowstone, and talked to her because I want to do them justice. And she had a really interesting thing that she said to me that I agree with. And she said of all the large animals in Yellowstone, this is the one she's afraid of the least. Like if she's out hiking alone and she runs into anything coyote-sized or bigger, this is the one that she'd most want to run into because there just is not much at all that these animals have done to people in North America. That's an important point to put on that in North America.
How come you never call me when you have like a biology question?
We'll talk about this after the podcast. Just kidding.
Oh my
I will,
God.
Jeff.
Wes is turning into
facts.
a werewolf.
Yeah.
He's so mad.
No, we do have this complex relationship though. And a lot of people hate wolves. A lot of hunters hate wolves because they compete for prey. A lot of ranchers hate wolves because they'll kill livestock. And people are genuinely afraid of wolves too. They think that they're a danger and they're not. Not in North America, at least. Although sometimes they can be. So that's kind of the nuance of this whole discussion. But I found this really great paper. It's titled The Fear of Wolves, a Review of Wolf Attacks on Humans. It's by Linnell et al. It's one of the best attack papers I've ever read. And they break down the frequency of attacks and reasons for attacks throughout gray wolf range. And their data goes all the way back to the 1700s. It's really, really good. There's some trends throughout the paper. Almost half of wolf attacks that were included in their record were a result of rabies, of rabid wolves. There is an extremely low incidence of rabies in wolves in the US, North America, and now Europe has pretty much eradicated it. But there are places in the world where wolves still get rabies a lot. Places like Iran, Russia, they're still rabid wolves, and they do kind of go crazy and bite a lot of people. So that can happen. Yeah, and like back in Europe, when wolves were running wild, a lot of them were rabid, and they would attack a lot of people. Some of the other major trends they identified, though, were provocation. So where a wolf is like chased into a barn or something, and it's cornered, so it lashes out. And then a really big one that we're going to talk about in another episode is extreme socio-environmental situations. So in places like northern India, where a lot of the prey's been eliminated, and there's a really high density of people, and there's livestock involved, and there's a lot of trash out, and sometimes human bodies aren't disposed of completely, or they're half cremated. It's led to this pressure cooker where certain individual wolves will start to see people as a source of food, and they can do a lot of damage. They can kill dozens of people. And there are spates where that starts to happen in India, in other countries too, in Russia, Kazakhstan. Some of the other stands have this problem. We're going to talk about that more some other time. Finally, habituation is another factor that can it relates to the last one, but if wolves are being fed or habituated to a high degree, if there were captive wolves that escaped, they're more likely to attack people as well. All right. Finally, there are few recorded cases where wolves that were healthy, not habituated, in really good habitat, didn't have rabies, still attacked people. And this happened in Alaska in 2010. It represents the only accepted and verified case of a wolf killing a human in the United States, although there are certainly others back in like the 1800s.
Maybe like Native Americans dealt with it a little before.
For sure, and like early trappers, and there's people that have been killed by wolves in the US before, but this is like the only verified one in the modern record. And
Wolves got to get those numbers up.
Yeah, and I promise you, I was trying to pick a wolf story that wasn't too dark, and somehow I settled on this one, and it's pretty dark. So this whole episode is just kind of a wash when it comes to how dark it is. It's an attack that we've referenced multiple times on the podcast because it is this like one data point, and I think it's important that we tell it. So we're going to tell it today. All right, in March 2010, Candace Berner was teaching special education in the village of Perryville, Alaska, and part of her job is she would travel to all the little small towns and villages in the general radius. One of those was the tiny village of Chignik Lake, and that village initially started as a home to just one family. But then a school was built in the 1950s, it grew, and in 2010, when this incident happened, there's about 75 people that called the village home, most of them being members of the Luktik tribe. 32-year-old Candace was originally from Pennsylvania, but she'd started her Alaskan adventure the previous year, just getting used to the large amounts of travel that she was required to do, and the tiny village of Chignik Lake was one of the only ones that had a schoolhouse, and it had about 17 students. Without a doubt, it's one of the smaller and more remote places that she was responsible for. On March 8th, 2010, she arrives in this tiny village, kind of on her rotation. It's still in the depths of Alaskan winter. There's long nights, freezing temperatures, and she teaches the children throughout the day. And then after they go home in the afternoon, she stuck around for a bit. She finished up some work stuff. She's talking to her colleagues. And she tells some of those colleagues that she's planning on taking a little run that night. She says that she's going to run up the road that leads from town to the bay of Chignik Lake or the Chignik River. And sometime around a little bit before 6 p.m., this 115-pound woman got on her running gear and started off into this darkness that's starting to surround this Alaskan road. Chignik Lake has a healthy population of brown and black bears, but it's early March, so those bears should still be in their winter dens. And because of that, I don't think she was really thinking too much about running into anything that might hurt her. There's moose, there's wolves, but those animals generally aren't really messing with us too much. The residents of Chignik had said that they had seen some wolves in and around the village that winter, but nothing out of the ordinary. These wolves weren't attacking dogs, no one was feeding them. It just seemed like sometimes in Chignik Lake, Alaska, you see wolves, and that's what they'd done. But there really weren't any factors that led to this attack, but sometime on that March 8th night, Candace Berner was attacked by wolves and she was killed by him. So not long after she left on her run, a group of 4 Chignik residents were returning from Dorner Bay on snowmobiles, and they're using that same road. And as they traveled the road, one of the men noticed some blood on the snow. And then he noticed more blood on the snow going down the hill. So he stops, he walks down the hill, and he finds a dead body. He and the rest of the group speed off to Chignik Lake, and then they return with some other men from the community, and they report the body of a dead woman to Alaska State Troopers. 3 men from the community decide to stay and guard this body, but 2 of them get cold, and they go back to Chignik Lake, and they leave their buddy with this dead body. Yeah.
Oh, no.
And so what he starts doing is he's like doing circles in his snowmobile in this clearing about 200 feet from the body. And he's doing that so the headlights will like illuminate all the forest around him. And he's doing that when a large wolf steps out into his snowmobile headlights, and he's like, "F it, I'm out of here." Takes off, goes back to Chignik Lake. So the next morning, they go back to where the body had been. It had been dragged down the hill and consumed more. A lengthy investigation was launched, and after testing a lot of the evidence, they confirmed that she'd been killed by wolves, and they're able to piece together kind of what happened. So she hadn't been too far from the community when she ran into these wolves coming down the road in the opposite direction. And it looks like from her track, she turned and ran, and 3 to 4 wolves, it was anywhere from 2 to 4 wolves, but they think it was probably 3 to 4, chased her down. There's a large impression in the snow where she fell, and they initially knocked her down and started biting her. Then she managed to get up and stumble about 10 feet down the road where there's another impression with a lot more blood. And then there's crawl marks away from that impression, and then drag marks down the hill. So she crawled away, the wolves grabbed her, dragged her down the hill, and there was a lot of blood in that drag mark. And then down at the bottom of the hill in the small clearing was where the most blood was, and that's where they think the wolves had killed her. They do think, just from the amount of blood that they found in these locations, that her death came pretty quick, that it wasn't a prolonged thing. And if there were 3 to 4 wolves, that would make sense to me. That would be a pretty fast thing. There are dogs out there, like wild dogs in Africa, that go for the rump and kind of like take their time.
Yeah.
Wolves tend to go for your throat and your face. So that does, that's one positive thing about all of this, if there is a positive thing, which there's not.
No.
So following this, they did go out and kill 8 wolves in the surrounding area over the next few months. So they probably got the wolves that were responsible for this. It's the only recorded fatality from a wolf in the United States. We might get to these other ones that are like maybe fatalities in the 1800s at some point. But aside from it being the only fatality, it's crazy that there's no factors that really led to this. These were just wolves that decided to kill a person. And for me, I think it's that she was running at night alone. And when these wolves saw her, she probably took off and started running the other direction. And Jeff, what does that usually do to most predators?
Makes them make a decision.
Yep. They're forced to make a quick decision. And what runs from them, Mike?
Oh man. Prey?
What runs from predators? Yeah, prey. Exactly. Yeah. When you run from a predator, you are doing something that they have hard grained into their brain as a prey response.
It was a lucky guess. I stopped listening like 30 minutes ago.
Perfect. Good. But like what Jeff just said, they're forced to make a decision. Like this animal would typically kind of be like, oh, what is this thing? Oh, it's a person. I don't really know how to deal with it. This is a really remote area, so who knows how much these wolves had interacted with people. But then when it immediately starts running, they're like, oh, that's what food does. So I'm going to chase it. And that's likely what happened.
So in the movie The Grey, they just had to stop running and they'd be fine.
Yeah, maybe.
It's that easy. Yeah. I did a subscriber episode a while ago about a gray wolf attack back in the 1800s. It ended up being a rabid wolf, and it was solitary.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know as far as like, would rabid wolves, they wouldn't still be in a pack situation like this 3 to 4 group of wolves? They wouldn't have been rabid, or do they still kind of group up like that when they are?
Yeah, not necessarily. I think rabid wolves are much more likely to kind of go out on their own and go on like a rampage. But I don't think it's unheard of that they would be in a pack either. So they definitely tested all of these wolves that they shot for rabies. And like rabies has a whole spectrum of its effects. An animal could be rabid and still be in their pack before that. manic kind of violent part of rabies sets in. And so it's kind of, yeah, that's a tricky one to say.
Okay.
Sammy, I have a question for you.
Yep.
So if you kill a wolf, but it's actually a werewolf, but it's just a wolf at the time you kill it, does it turn back into the human form?
I feel like yes. Yes, it does.
Okay. So these, we can be pretty confident
They're not werewolves.
none of these wolves were werewolves.
Yeah.
But does
Yeah, I
it
think
turn
so.
back immediately upon death, or do we have to wait for the moon to go down?
Immediately. It's immediate.
I think it does. I think it does. Yeah.
They just have like a wolf on their autopsy table and suddenly it's a person when the moon goes down. That's the ultimate prank that a werewolf can do. All right. So I do just want to stress one more time, though. This is a scary story, but wolf attack rates are insanely low. Like when you think about it, we only have that one coyote fatality too in Newfoundland that we talked about. And that was in Canada. And Canada does have a wolf fatality now as well from 2005. But these animals don't have much higher of like a kill rate than coyotes. And we're not afraid of coyotes. At least we aren't on this podcast. Some people probably are. These are not an animal that see us as a prey species in North America. There are parts of the world where they're a real threat. We're going to talk about that some other time. But if you're in North America, you really don't have much to fear from wolves. And that paper that I read, they did it was published in 2002 and they did an extra part of it from 2002 to 2018. And there's a paragraph from it I really liked. And they said, in Europe and North America, we found evidence for 11 attacks. So this is in an 18-year period, of which 2 were fatal. And one of these is the one we just talked about, across a period of 18 years. Considering that there are close to 60,000 wolves in North America and 15,000 in Europe, all sharing space with hundreds of millions of people, it's apparent that if the risks associated with the wolf attack are above 0, but far too low to calculate. So
So
Pretty
what
crazy.
yeah,
would be a good comparison? Like you're as likely to get killed by what's something else that was only happened once?
yeah, like coyote. That's the one I think of.
Well, I'm
that's not
saying
a
like
fun answer.
Yeah, I don't know, like a
Like an
Something
anvil
like a
falling from the
9/11.
sky.
falling. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
A 9/11.
A log
Jesus.
through the. Oh, yeah. Well, I guess.
I guess it's more than one though.
Yeah,
That was twice.
sure. Yeah, I like Sammy's answer better. But,
I was just trying to
yeah.
think like what's like something like
Yeah.
what's a crazy way just one person died once.
I think we got some great ones there. I think we did good.
Yeah.
But no, it's very unlikely. And I do just, again, want to put that pin in there that this is a very different animal in other parts of its range. We are going to talk about that. And that's because of the specific conditions that it's found in, some of those socioeconomic things and rabies. But in North America, we pretty much eliminated the threat of wolf attacks. You still have to be careful. And during our categories, I'm going to briefly tell you what you should do if you run into a wolf and it's kind of a scary encounter. All right. So that's it for werewolves and wolves. You guys have any questions before we get to categories?
Just in thinking about coming on for this episode, I did have the thought that I was like not scared of wolves. They're not an animal that I fear usually, but I'm really scared of mountain lions. Does that feel justified?
I don't think you should be really scared of them, but I think you should be aware that they are a potential threat.
Yeah.
And you should prepare yourself for a potential encounter with one.
Yeah.
And bear spray works great on mountain lions.
Okay.
They rarely attack people, though. They're a very misunderstood animal as well.
We had one here in Los Angeles that died
Yeah.
recently. P22. Rest in peace.
Yeah. R.I.P.
I heard some fact about how LA is one of the only major cities that has
Yeah, LA and Mumbai are two of the only major cities that have an urban large predator that lives within the city. So Mumbai has leopards, LA has mountain lions.
I feel like too mountain lions are kind of like snakes where the idea of them is almost more scary than actually facing one, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of thinking one might be in the trees, one might be following me.
Like
And
hearing
it's
a twig
if you actually
break.
see one, it's kind of okay, this thing's not going to do anything to me. But the idea of one following you is scary. Or if you see one, are you going to be pretty scared?
I think I would be pretty scared if I saw one.
You'd be like more, yeah, okay.
But no, I think you're right. That's kind of like the same principle in horror movies. It's like scarier, the anticipation leading up to something. And then once you see the thing, it's like, oh, it's not as bad. It's the like dread beforehand. Like I remember going on a hike once and there being a sign at the beginning of the hike, like mountain lions spotted here. And for the whole hike, I was just like, well, I'm gonna die.
You definitely shouldn't feel that
But you
way.
still went on the hike.
I still did it, yeah.
That's brave.
Yeah.
And I didn't die.
Mike, did you have something you wanted to say in there?
Did I? Oh, I think I was going to talk about how most of the victims of these encounters are usually pretty diminutive, like pretty small people.
Yeah.
So maybe a good strategy is just to like put on hella weight, just keep eating and stuff. Or put on like a huge jacket,
Ton
like
of
the
muscle.
one Jeff threw away. Man, I miss that jacket.
That makes you look tiny.
Fair enough, but not to a mountain
Maybe
lion.
you're right. It does. It does make your head look like the Goombas in the Mario movie, the '90s Mario movie.
Sammy, I will say just like a quick 10-second, 20-second like thing. If you ever do encounter a mountain lion and you don't have bear spray or deterrent, you just want to be as loud and as aggressive and as kind of dominant as possible.
Great.
And almost always that's enough to discourage that animal. They don't like taking risks. So
You
That's
shouldn't have
usually-
any problem with that, Sammy.
yeah,
Yep.
just
Dominating.
Yeah. Yep. Great.
You can
Fears
call
all
it a
gone.
pussy.
Yep.
You can yell like
Yep.
pussy at it and
That
get
would
away with
probably
it. because
really
it's
hurt
like
its
a
feelings,
cat,
too,
You know?
yeah.
Well, it'd be like, what? I know.
All right. So we're going to get into our categories. Our first one, Jeff says we maybe have done before, but I think it might have been on a subscriber episode. But it is your favorite werewolf from pop culture. So I will go last. Sammy, why don't you go first? I want to hear your favorite werewolf.
You know, I'm embarrassed to say that I completely forgot that Jacob existed. When you mentioned Jacob earlier, I was like, oh my God, Jacob, my guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I didn't write down Jacob, even though I do love him very much. I wrote down Professor Lupin from the Harry Potter movies.
Ooh, that's a good pick.
And
That's
I
a really
think
good
it's
pick.
because it's a different werewolf than you normally see. He's very
Yeah, like
kind of
gangly.
sad and gangly and almost hairless. It's looks a little more human-like than
Yeah. It's spooky.
wolf-like. And I had never seen a werewolf like it. And, you know, it's just always stuck with me as
Yeah.
a special werewolf. Love Lupin as a character in general. So Professor Lupin, shout out.
It's a good pick.
Are you talking more like movie or book Lupin?
I'm picturing movie Lupin.
Okay. Yeah.
But
It never
yeah.
made sense too, because there was also the other werewolf, the bad one,
Yeah.
Fenrir Greyback.
Fenrir, yeah.
Yeah, Fenrir.
Mm.
And like he was always just kind of like a movie werewolf. Where
Yeah,
it was
he
like
was
part
more-
wolf, part man.
The stereotypical what you picture.
Yeah.
And I can't
Whatever.
remember why. Haven't read the books in a long time. There
Yeah.
might be some
Yeah.
reasons
Yeah,
to
I
why
can't
they look
remember.
different ways. I'm going
Yeah.
pure off just
Why
my
is
memory
Peter,
of what they look like.
Why is Peter Pettigrew stuck as like a rat and Lupin gets to be a wolf?
It's different rules.
I
Didn't
don't
he
know,
like
but-
choose it?
It's a
I
good
think
question.
he chose it.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Well,
love
rats-
rats.
They have their benefits.
Yeah.
They can sneak into small spaces.
Yeah.
Spread the plague. Jeff, Mike, what do you guys got for your favorite werewolf?
Jeff, you go.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going Teen Wolf. And maybe I do feel like we've done this category before, but my
It's fine.
explanation would be when he first turns into a wolf, it's like in front of the whole school. They're playing basketball. And
Yeah.
everyone's going for the ball. And then he turns into a wolf. And they keep playing the game.
Yeah.
Like just with him as a werewolf. And I just love that. I want to pose the question, is it like crazier that they let Air Bud play basketball or like a werewolf?
A werewolf. Yeah. I think the werewolf is crazier. Yeah.
I don't know. Because he wasn't a werewolf when the game started. You gonna like throw the rule book at him mid game? I don't know. I'm going. It's
more
weird that
shocking
Air
to me
Bud-
though.
Yeah, sure, but that's a different question.
It'd be funny if
Sure.
there was just one character that was screaming absolute bloody
Yeah.
murder. Just like
Just dies
so
out of
freaked out.
fright.
One person in the crowd.
What the fuck is that? What's going on?
It's like, why are we playing basketball still? What? Stop!
That's a great pick. That movie was important to me too because the scene with Pamela Wells, who was like kind of the mean girl in the closet, was my first romantic feelings I ever had toward a woman.
Wow.
As
What
a
do you mean
small
by
boy. I don't need to go into any
All right.
specifics, but I felt romantic urges toward
Right.
her. Yes.
Okay. I'm going with Bigsby Wolf. It's from a game called The Wolf Among Us. He's kind of like an investigator going around trying to figure out some murder mystery. Listen, I know I'm losing you guys, but I'll just end it with it's really fun, kind of gritty retelling of some fables, classic fables. It's really fun. It's great. Anyone
Right.
into playing games, check it out.
I think I'm going to pick The Werewolves from Underworld,
Mm.
which is kind of a silly movie, but I really liked the way they were designed and like how they were kind of being like picked on by the vampires, and they hated the vampires because they were like this kind of upper class, and then the werewolves were kind of like the working class guys, and
Hell yeah.
anyway, yeah, I just kind of related with them, I guess, back then. And
Rooting for them.
yeah, and I liked how they were designed and how powerful they were. And yeah, so that's my pick is the werewolves from the movies, the Underworld movies.
Nice. I feel like werewolves are kind of a blind spot for me in my horror knowledge, to be honest. I haven't seen any of the things you guys just talked about, and haven't seen American Werewolf in London. I just haven't seen a lot of the
Ooh,
like
that's a good one.
classics. I've seen Dog
Yeah.
Soldiers. That's a good one. Kind of
Uh,
weirder one.
The Wolf of Snow Hollow is another really good one.
Oh, is
I
that kind of
liked.
a recent one?
It is,
It's
yeah.
more recent?
And it's kind of like horror comedy, but I really liked it quite
I feel like they're also having a bit of a moment right now. There's like Night Bitch coming out, and
Oh, yeah.
there's a movie called Wolfman
The
coming
Wolfman.
out.
Yeah,
And there's a movie I think just called Werewolves coming out
perfect. Keep
next
it
year as
simple.
well. I
Yeah.
feel like I've been seeing a lot of werewolf stuff on the horizon, so
Yeah,
know,
I
maybe
think
I'm
you're
gonna-
right.
maybe I'm going to get more into them.
I feel like since we've kind of learned not to be afraid of wolves, and wolves aren't really around that much anymore, like werewolves aren't as scary to people anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they need to do something of the actual, like, what is it, lycanthropy? Like,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of more what Night Bitch is. It's just someone that's like convinced themselves that they turn into a dog, which
Yeah.
that's scarier.
Scary. I
It
don't want to
is.
watch that. Yeah. All right. Well, our next category is going to be a quick one. Just quick, whether you're Team Edward or Team Jacob.
Easy, Jacob, all the way, 100%.
Really?
All right.
I was trying to come up with reasons to pick Jacob
Really?
and was kind of striking out. Wait, you should defend that though, because I'm really interested.
Well, we have covered all the Twilight movies on my podcast, and I talk about it at great length. I've never not been
She's
Team
like,
Jacob.
let me get my notes.
um,
Pulls out a board with the lines all connecting.
It's, I think, just because of how silly he is really what it comes down to. I watch the Twilight movies out of silliness and laughing, and I just think Jacob is sillier, and he has such good lines. Bella, where the hell have you been, Loca? It's just absolutely iconic.
Immediately bonding with their child.
I like-
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's so weird.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
he's problematic for sure, but so is Edward.
Sure,
Fair
yeah.
enough.
I would say more so.
I like the fact that the Twilight movies have been featured on a podcast about movies that are too scary to watch.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
relate. I guess I can kind of
Yeah.
relate.
Some people really avoid them.
Oh.
Jess?
Yeah, maybe it's too scary to watch because you would like never be able to love just a normal person. You'd need a vampire or a werewolf
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started out Team Jacob because I thought he was hotter. But I don't know, Edward too, like he's been going to high school for like hundreds of years or something. It's kind of
That is
weird.
weird.
Yeah, that is weird. Stop
That
going
is
to high
scary.
school. Yeah.
So I'll probably you know who I really like is the guy who's trying to kill Bella in the first one. The guy
The
from
blonde
like the Never Back Down movie. Or like
Sure.
that movie where he's like does the switching, but it's like with a penis. That guy.
Wait, hold on.
You just said so many
Bad
things.
Johnson or something. There's
Bad
a,
Never
Johnson?
heard of that movie.
there's a
Hold on,
movie
I
where
gotta
it's
write
like
this down.
Freaky Friday, but like just him and a penis.
I
And
feel
he-
like Cam Gigandet
Yeah,
is the name
that's
that's
his name.
coming to my.
Mm.
That's
Yeah,
his
Never
name.
Back Down. Okay, hold on. I need to know what penis movie you're talking about.
Bad
That's why it's called
Johnson.
Bad Johnson, and
Bad-
it's like
Bad.
it's like the
Johnson.
Freaky Friday situation where you like switch, but it's like with
So
a
wait.
penis. So a
He
penis
just, like
turns
somebody
into a
else's
penis.
penis.
I think
Oh,
it's his. Like his
okay,
penis
I
takes
see.
over him.
Gotcha. Well,
Yeah,
isn't
that's
that kind of
him.
like? Yeah, that's
I've
not
just
the
seen the
craziest.
preview, but like that's
stretch
all
of
you
imagination.
really need. And I would just want to say too, I drove Kristen Stewart at Sundance Film Festival,
Ooh.
Mhm.
and she's really cool. And
She
like,
seems really cool.
after her movie, like she's trying to get away from Twilight, but all these fans were waiting outside forever to like meet her, and they're all just Twilight signs and like Twilight shirts. She went and like talked to them all and took selfies, so she's cool.
It's nice.
Nice.
That's great.
Mike, where you falling on this?
Edward. Just seems like,
Ned.
I don't know. Seems like my speed a little bit more socially kind of thing.
Yeah. I think Jacob's cooler. I do, but I think I'm
Oh,
Team
really?
Edward still. Yeah, like
I
I think if
It's
Bella's gonna end up with one, it's
yeah,
gotta
that's
be
the thing
Edward.
is like inarguably Edward is the right match for Bella, and there's
Yeah.
I feel like never a moment in the series really where it feels like there's actually much competition. So I'm Team Edward.
Yeah,
I mean, Team Jacob for me.
yeah.
Team Edward for Bella.
I think Jacob's the best in the first movie when he's got like long hair and he's
Oh
just
my
kind of
God,
a
that
skater
wig.
guy and like boyish. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
when I
See,
think he's like the
I
coolest.
kind of think the opposite of you. I feel like Edward's cooler, but Jacob's like hotter.
Right.
Yeah, he takes
Okay.
his shirt off a lot. Doesn't sparkle when he does it.
God, it's funny.
All right.
we got to stop. Sammy's getting ideas.
It's so funny.
Sammy, I forgot to
Next
prep
category.
you on this one, but
Okay.
what animal would you want to transform into once a week for 12 hours? You have to transform into an animal once a week for 12 hours. What animal are you picking? Let's rule out birds, because I think that's too easy. Even
damn it.
like oh, I want to turn into a bird so I can fly for 12 hours.
I was going
Let's
to
rule
say
them out.
whatever
Okay.
the bird that the harpy eagle that I
Yeah,
talked
it's
about
a good
last
pick.
time. That would have been a good one. Okay.
You can have a harpy eagle, whatever. But the three of us can't say birds. That's too easy. We'll let you have it, unless you think of something else.
Yeah, you guys talk, and I'll think of a second thing.
Yeah.
Maybe a shark.
Here, I can talk.
Okay.
I looked it
Okay.
up. The movie's called Bad Johnson, and the description is a charismatic womanizer receives his comeuppance after his penis mysteriously leaves his body and takes human form.
Mysteriously.
Oh.
So his penis is like a guy out there walking around.
Yeah,
Huh. Interesting. Might have
I
to
haven't
watch this
seen
movie.
it, but the preview's great.
That's a dilemma because, like, what do? You don't want it to
Yeah.
get like taken in or arrested, and you don't want to kill him because you want
Yeah.
it back, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's a
I don't
great
know.
idea for a movie.
If it's turning into people, I don't know if I want it back. I think I would pick like some sort of, I think like a mountain lion. I think I would just
Yeah.
want to know what it feels like to like be so powerful and like walk around the mountains and everything, and nothing really feels like energetically too taxing to you, and you can just kind of, I don't know, I think they must feel, I bet they experience life on a different level than what we're aware of, and so I'd love to feel that.
I'm gonna go with Bumblebee
Nice.
because,
The
like,
Transformer.
yeah. Oh, does that count? Can we pick
No.
Transformers?
Can't pick Transformers.
Shoot. So Bumblebee is cool because, like, you're small enough you can kind of stealth your way into different places. And people
Uh-huh.
like bumblebees. If you're like a spider or a fly or something, people are trying to like swat you or kill you. No one's trying to kill bumblebees. So, like, I don't know. It feels like you could sneak in to, like, I don't know what you would sneak into, a bank vault or an airplane or something.
What are you gonna do in there?
That's true because, like, you're
Turn
gonna
back
need to
into
get
a human.
out.
You just wait there until you're a human, but then you
Right.
can't get out.
That's the
But you
thing.
wait until
You're
you're
gonna
Then
have to
you
wait
get
again.
arrested. Yeah.
But for a second there, you had a lot of money,
Yep.
and that's
You just
the
go.
goal.
You just go hang out with the money, and that'll.
You
feel
could like
really
watch
good.
them put the code in, and then
Oh, there you go.
code.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now we're
Yeah.
thinking. This bumblebee is hovering right in front of my. What is this? What's going on?
Why does it have a tiny notepad?
They're like blocking the code from the bee.
Jeff, what's your answer?
I mean, it's like some type of sea animal, I think. Sea otter,
That's a good
maybe.
pick. Yeah.
Messing
Great
around.
answer.
Dolphin.
I have a question though with if you did a shark or dolphin, sea otter seems
I wouldn't be
maybe,
very sexy.
maybe less of
like
a
when
risk, but like, do you know when it's gonna happen, or are you just like in your house and you
Oh,
turn into
yeah.
a shark? Because then
I
that'd
think
be
you
really
know.
bad.
Yeah, that
That's
would
a
be
good
bad.
point. If it just like is always going to happen, yeah.
I think you
Right.
know.
Okay,
But
so
yeah,
you can
that does-
plan. You can like
That
be like,
complicates it.
mark your calendar, go to the
Yeah, I
ocean.
gotta get to the coast
Fat
right
road.
now. Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good point.
If you lose track of time, you have to like find someone's pool or something to be close to.
Or just like every time I shower, it starts happening. Like I can't get water on me.
Ooh,
That's tough.
That's true. All right. Briefly, because there wasn't like a good opportunity for what would Mike and Jeff do here, I just want to briefly go over what you should do if you see a wolf. These are straight from Kira, my friend. And Kira says you should make yourself as big as possible, make noises to communicate that you're human. So just like yell. You can make noises with anything metal. They don't like metal noises. Back away slowly. Don't turn and run. We talked about that already. You can throw things at the wolf to deter it. And then if you have bear spray and the wolf comes too close, you can use bear spray. It will work on a wolf really well. So those are the things that she suggests. All right.
That's what she said.
Nice,
Yep, that's what she said.
nice.
Jeff, do you have an
Yeah.
animal fact for us?
Yeah, I'm just going to do one I learned from one of our guides when we were in Borneo. And so rhinoceros hornbills, they'll sleep on the very end of branches in their trees. And that's because there's clouded leopards that live there. And they can feel the leopard like step onto the branch when the leopard's trying to kill him. So that way, like they have some more space to like wake up and fly off.
That's
Smart.
cool. I'm glad they do that because they're a cool bird.
Yeah, I know, but the cloud leopard's probably pretty hungry.
They are. Yep.
Yeah. And they're cool too.
They are cool. I love clouded leopards. They have canines that are like the same size as a tiger's canine, but they're like a fifth the size of a tiger.
Ooh,
which is
that's
cool.
a good bonus fact for
Yeah,
everyone.
bonus fact.
Yeah. West fact.
Sammy, you host a horror movie podcast.
I do.
Along with your wonderful co-hosts, Emily and Henley.
Mhm.
And me and Mike have been talking a lot about horror movies lately. Jeff is also dabbles in horror movies a bit. And I'm sure a
I
lot of
feel
our
like
listeners do.
Acting like I don't like horror movies just as like a way to say why I'm not on you guys' horror
No,
movies.
that's not it.
Like I like horror movies.
Okay. But Sammy, I would say of the four of us has really, you've dove into
Oh,
this
sure,
the most.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know your 5 current horror movie recommendations for this Halloween. And they don't have to be current. They can be whatever you would just recommend this Halloween. 5 movies.
Great. Most recently, I think this was 2 nights ago, I watched a horror movie that I hadn't seen before that genuinely really scared me, which doesn't happen a lot. It was called Oddity. It
Ooh, I saw
is
Oddity. Yeah.
an Irish horror movie that I really knew nothing about going into it. I had heard some positive reviews, some negative reviews, and just was curious. It's on Shudder. Put it on the other night and had the experience of afterwards, like having to look all around my house, checking to make sure all the doors are locked and the windows are closed. And
Yeah.
I don't normally do that. Like I usually, the second a movie ends, I'm like, okay, great, time for bed, immediately asleep. And I feel like this one really just
Gotcha.
creeped me out. It got me. And
It's a good
so
one. I really liked it.
Just
Yeah.
watching the trailer, I saw the big wooden whatever
Yeah.
fetish. I don't know what you would
Mannequin.
call it.
Scary
but a
wood
mannequin
man.
thing.
Yeah.
There's an
Yeah,
even
I close my eyes and
scarier-
see its face.
There's an even scarier guy in it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm
There's
talking about?
Some ghouls. Yeah.
And
wow.
Yeah.
you just hate to see a scary guy, you know? Really well designed scary guy. Oh, nothing scarier. So Oddity, that's on Shudder.
Okay.
Not even like a bear is scarier than a guy? Like a bear in the woods?
This guy's pretty scary.
Well, a scary bear.
Yeah. I'd pick.
Is he
I'd
wearing
pick the
a
bear
hard
over this
plastic
guy.
mask or some sort of like
Carrying a machete.
Yeah. It's the masks I feel like that really
That's always scared
Get
me.
me.
Too.
Jeff
Yeah.
doesn't
why-
like masks. All right, what's next?
Next, this I think just came to Hulu. This is a movie from this year that I unexpectedly loved. The First Omen.
I love that movie.
Usually a horror remake or sequel, they don't always go well. They can be, I think The Exorcist sequel came out this year. I didn't even see it. People really, really hated it. I think that is more common than this, which I think was just like an awesome sequel or prequel rather. And
I remember messaging you when it came out and being like, I really liked this.
I'm so
a
sad
lot.
I didn't see it in theaters because it was really, really good. And that's on Hulu now. Next up, these are, I feel like, just a classic October Halloween-y vibe. I couldn't choose between them, but Hellraiser and Hellbound Hellraiser 2. It's because I prefer Hellraiser 2, but it's like, if you're going to watch, don't skip Hellraiser 1. You got to watch them both. They're weird, horny, violent. Like the original name was Sadomasochists from Hell, so it's
it's descriptive.
Just quite a vibe. Pinhead, Cenobites, lots of great Halloween costume ideas. I was someone from Hellbound Hellraiser 2 once. It was, I think, my finest Halloween costume I've ever done.
So is that 3 and 2, or are you combining those?
That's 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Sorry,
no, I'm
4.
combining them. I'm combining.
Okay.
It's
okay.
3. It's 3
All
only.
Yeah.
Next is Mandy. It's just one of my all-time favorites. Nicolas Cage, one of his finest performances of all time. Crazy movie, neon, violent, and drug-fueled motorcycle demon guys. I love it.
It's a wild movie. Got to see it to understand it.
Excellent score. Johan Johansson's final score, I believe. And sometimes I listen to it by myself in my house, and it's really weird and creepy. And then finally...
I was just going to say, Nick Cage on cocaine is a match made in heaven. Like, I don't know what more you could ever ask for out of a movie.
It's you really can't go wrong. Really can't
I kind of like when they're like on cocaine, but you never see it. Like Al Pacino in Heat.
Mm-hmm.
Just like this guy is like on cocaine, but there's never a scene of him taking
like
cocaine.
They do this sometimes and like, you're like, okay.
Yeah, that's fun.
That's enough. Yeah.
And then my final one is just because I know Wes and I love this movie. And when I watched it for the first time, I floated around my house in glee. It is the 2013 Evil Dead, the most fake blood ever used in a movie.
Yeah.
And boy, can you see it on the screen.
Yeah.
It's gnarly.
I redid my annual watch of it not long ago. And I remember just thinking, like, every time I watch that movie, I'm like, I forgot how hard this movie goes.
It goes so hard.
Yeah.
God, it's great.
Just scene after scene. And it's like gory, but also scary and just balls to the wall the whole movie.
Yeah,
so
I think I was just like so filled with adrenaline by the end of it that I had to like run laps around my apartment. It's just like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Wes made me watch it. This is the first time I'd seen it this year. He made me watch it for our little horror movie thing. And there's things, not just the blood and the gore, but like some things are said that like, quite frankly, cross the line in like a really entertaining and like just shocking way. I had a great time watching it, but
yeah.
It's a lot smarter than just like a haunted cabin in the woods kind of thing too. There's a lot more going on. So
totally.
I'm on board. All the way on board with that movie.
And I guess talking about remakes of classic movies, I feel like it did I had held out on seeing it for a long time because I feel like remakes at around the time 2013 this came out were like the Texas Chainsaw remakes and Hills Have Eyes. I guess that was a little earlier, but I had an image in my mind of like horror remakes are just like disgusting versions of the original
with
ones.
Like hot actors.
Yeah, which this one it is disgusting also, but in like I don't know, just a better way, the right way. And I think, some of the dialogue that you're mentioning just does feel reminiscent of the original movies. Like there still is an element of the fun silliness of the originals, but then it is also like much gnarlier and more brutal and just balances it very well, I think.
Yeah.
So
it's
wait,
great.
in the movie The Shining, they like did the whole elevator of fake blood.
Yeah.
And it has more than that.
Yes, it does. I believe
Yeah,
it
there's
was
a whole rainstorm of blood.
And
Yeah.
I just found out that I believe The Substance, which just came out, is now the second most fake blood ever used in a movie. So
Okay.
it goes 2013
Ah.
Evil Dead and then The Substance. I'd love to
Wow.
see a full ranking list. Like, where does The Shining fall
Like
in?
your top 20. It's got to be
Yeah.
top 10. It's a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
blood.
It's a lot.
All right. Well, thank you, Sammy. So, guys, if you're into horror movies, go check those out.
Wait,
Jeff, do you?
I want
Oh,
to
go
I want
ahead.
to ask Sammy a question because me and you kind of have a difference in opinion when it comes to jump scares. Where do you fall on jump scares just as a whole?
I'm usually anti jump scare. I don't like a jump scare unless it really catches me off guard. Like there's one
Yeah.
in The Night House that got me so bad, and then it's like I can't help but be impressed. But I'm, for example, really dreading seeing Smile 2 because I know that those movies are really filled with jump scares, and so if I know there's going to be like jump scare after jump scare, it's just like I can't. I'm just tense for the whole movie in a way that's not like about the craft of the film. It's just my own like I don't like a jump scare.
I don't like
Me
them when
neither.
they're lazy, but I like them when they're well
But
done.
yeah, I do like
See,
a well done one.
All the ones that are the best are the ones that kind of defy like the convention of the jump
Mhm.
scare, you know, like the Exorcist 3 one where the camera, whatever, we don't need to litigate this all right now, but I just think they're so cheap, you know.
Yep.
I hate being startled. It makes me mad, Wes.
They're getting
Man.
smart with it now too, where they like make you feel like there's a jump scare coming.
Yes,
Because
the
they like
scream.
no, and then it doesn't happen. And then you think like, okay, I know this trick, it's gonna come right now. And then it doesn't happen. And then like a minute later it happens.
They did a great
Yeah.
bit in the Scream 5 that was just like kept not being a
Just
jump
no-
scare
Yeah.
just over and over, and you're like, oh god, oh
Like
god.
they open a mirror, or they open a
Yeah,
fridge.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
pretty funny.
All right, let's go into a quick conservation corner. So, as I mentioned, there's about 60,000 gray wolves in North America, about 15,000 in Europe. I don't have numbers for the rest of their range, but this is an animal that's doing fairly well throughout its range. They're really
Do you know,
adaptable.
like, how many states they're in?
They're in Alaska, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Washington, Colorado now, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin.
Is there like North Dakota? Like, is there a link
They're in more
between
than that.
Minnesota and Montana?
They're not in the Great Plains. So no, those populations are linked.
Hmm.
And then there's like some wolves down in Arizona, I believe. There's some eastern wolves. They're in more states than you might think. But in the states, they're fraught still with a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of hatred for wolves. There's a lot of litigation that's ongoing right now about wolf protection. So I do think they still are in quite the battle for conservation in the states. Outside of that, though, they are doing quite well. They're very adaptable. They have a lot of pups when they breed. They're smart animals. They're good at kind of carving a niche in a new environment. They're great. So worldwide, their conservation status, I believe, is least concern. But in the United States, they were on the endangered species list and recently were taken off.
Mm.
And there's a lot of pressure on them right now. A lot of pressure. Anyway,
Pressure
in
makes
Yellowstone-
diamonds.
the pressure does make diamonds. That's true. You always say that. In Yellowstone, they had been extirpated or wiped out in the 1800s and early 1900s. They were reestablished in 1996. And since then, the changes to the ecosystem there have been really drastic. Everything from beavers to willows to cutthroat trout are doing better because of the wolf reintroduction. And a lot of that is because the elk and the prey species for those wolves are much more vigilant than they used to be. So they can't just like sit and eat everything. They have to be more choosy about what they eat. And that allows plants to kind of regenerate. And it just creates this whole cascade of effects. And so they're really important for their ecosystem. And they're amazing animals. I love them. Every time I see one, I just think that is the ancestor of my dog. And I get to see it out in the wild. And it's so special. There's a really beautiful part of Sand County Almanac, which Aldo Leopold wrote, where he talks about them killing a wolf and seeing this green fire in its eyes disappear. And that's like, it's this conservation message of like, these animals have something in them that we can't understand. And I think a wolf is a really good representation of that. All right.
Yeah,
So don't get me
I'd just
talking about
say,
them. I'll get emotional.
Like, having been to Africa for the first time this year and doing like safaris and stuff, they have a lot of predators
Mhm.
in Africa. You won't ever see a place with more ungulates than Africa, too. Like, you know, having predators and having a lot of predators helps the ecosystem. It helps
Yeah.
like wildlife. And hunters feel like they have it in their mind, like, I don't know, they can't go like 6 years without. All you need to do is wait it out a little bit and then the ecosystem will rebound. But when wolves like first get reintroduced, it does take a dip and people are like, see, we told you so. But
Right.
they just wait a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
And the elk you have in a couple decades are better. They're stronger. They're
Yeah.
wilder.
Mhm.
So for me,
We
yeah.
could get kudus if we had wolves. And
Sure.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Dude, why don't we have cougars?
zebras
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah. No, that's a good point though, Jeff. And Yellowstone's kind of like our little pocket of what the United States used to be like, where there are these huge herds of ungulates. There's lots of predators. Like on a single day in Yellowstone, you can see a lot of bears. You can see wolf packs. You can see all these things. And we used to have that, but we kind of got rid of it when we got rid of all of our ungulates. And now there's this push and pull between hunters and conservationists, and it is really tricky. But I love wolves, so
I
I'm
think
pro
every
wolf.
state should have them.
Yeah, I agree. Sure. All right.
Except maybe Hawaii.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
All right. Our final thing we're going to do today is our claw rating. I think we've done it for wolves before, but Sammy wasn't here. So, Sammy, this is just on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 claws being like, this is a minted, one of your favorite animals. You absolutely just love this animal. And 0 claws being like mosquitoes for you.
Mhm.
So, why don't you go first?
I'm going to say 7 claws.
Okay. Respectable. Yeah.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Jeff?
Yeah, I think I'll go 9. Put them at 43 overall.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah.
Big.
I like wolves a lot. I would argue they might have like the best noise any animal makes.
Ooh, yeah.
Like the wolf
Yeah.
howl. I don't know if anything's like cooler than a
haunting.
wolf howl.
Yeah.
Like maybe a whale song are the two that I would like put.
I don't
in the
like
same
whale
Yeah.
category.
sounds.
All right.
What?
Fair enough. Okay.
I think it's cool they sing, but when I like hear a whale song, I'm not like I want to keep listening to this.
They do go on for like 30 minutes.
Jeff's
It's
like, get
dude,
me out of the water.
Yeah.
It's like,
I
it's
don't.
very,
I
like-
want my water empty.
they are kind of like the Godspeed You Black Emperor of the natural world whales.
Sure.
Just like, come on,
Yeah,
get
you're
to
like,
the climax.
Yeah.
To me, like
Fair enough.
a lion's roar would be in serious contention.
Yeah. Could you do that for us really quick?
The lion or the wolf?
Yeah, lion. Could you do a lion roar for us?
I'm like trying.
Oh, wow.
Some interesting tones at the end there.
Okay.
I liked it. Yeah. It was good.
I'm going to give them a 7 as well. I think they're really cool. This is not fair, but when people call them woofs, I start
Yeah, I don't
thinking
like
less of them.
woofs. Yeah.
It's not their fault,
Yep.
but the world's not fair.
But we're taking a claw off for that regardless.
Yeah.
I think too. I feel like their babies aren't
Wolves.
as quite as cute as they should be.
Ooh.
Wow.
That's a hard disagree from me. I
Okay.
love wolf pups.
Like I'm
They're
not
just
saying they're
so
not cute, but
Yeah.
I'm just thinking like I almost think like golden retriever puppies are like a lot cuter than wolf puppies.
Interesting. Well,
I had to look at pictures and they're so cute.
Am I
pretty
wrong?
cute.
I could be.
I think you
wrong.
might be wrong. We need to do our cute animal babies March Madness again. Did we have them on our list last time?
Yeah, I think this year I'm going to go adult, cutest adult. animal.
Cutest adults. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to give them a 9, and it's probably my closest to a 10 that I've done so far. I feel because of how much I love dogs, wolves are like like I said, it's like you're seeing their ancestor out there in
That's
the
a good
wild.
Question: is it your favorite like wild dog species?
Yeah. Yeah, they are. And African wild dogs are like a close second because I've been
Okay.
able to work with them. But wolves are my favorite. Again, like the howl, the pack dynamics, just how successful they are. I just love so many things about them. Their eyes. I just think they're such a cool animal. So it's a 9 for me.
So now success is like a measure of how much you like something. You hate billionaires though, right?
Yeah. But that's
So what are we doing here?
I like millionaires. I think if there was a wolf that had slaughtered every single ungulate in the country and then like blamed it on other people, then I would hate that wolf.
Yeah.
And that's how I see billionaires. So
Okay.
yeah,
Sure.
it's an excess. I was trying to find this
It's a
photo
good
I have
point,
of like
though, Mike.
a million wolf puppies.
He's
Yeah.
being a little hypocritical.
I don't hate success. I hate when success is gained off the labor of others, and it's that.
Oh,
kind
so
of
wolves
success.
have never come and taken a kill from a bear.
They don't scavenge.
No, they do sometimes, but
Okay.
I put the qualifier on the end of that,
Unbelievable.
and it's that kind of success. All right, fair enough. It's actually not fair at all.
If you want to say you like wolves, you have to like billionaires.
No, that's not true. I love wolves. I hate billionaires.
You have to choose one billionaire that
I'm
you like.
sticking to.
Yeah.
I could probably find one. I bet I could find a billionaire that I'm okay with.
Kylie
But,
Jenner. I think she's out of the running now.
Oh, self-made.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift. I like Taylor Swift.
Is Michael Jordan a billionaire?
Yes.
Probably.
MJ's a
Yeah.
billionaire.
Yes, he is.
I like him. Yeah.
He's so
Okay.
crazy. I just watched The Last Dance. He's absolutely a lunatic, but I love him as
he's
well.
out of his
I don't
mind. Yeah,
He's-
but I like him.
He's
Sure.
a good, yeah. I love him.
I'm trying to see if I can find this photo of like a ton of wolf pups that were stacked on top of each other, but I can't. So you're just gonna have to wait for that.
Damn.
I'm looking
right.
at wolf pups. I'm standing by what I said.
Yeah.
I think they're undeniably cute.
Yeah.
But when I did
think
the
they should be
cutest
cuter.
baby animal bracket, I couldn't find a picture of a wolf cub. Whereas this is gonna go far in the tournament. I don't think
Okay.
they're as cute as domestic dog puppies.
That's fine.
Come at me.
Fair enough.
We're not gonna come at you. Nope.
I'll drive up to your house
So
later.
close to finding
Beat you up.
All right. Well, that's it for the episode. Sorry, there was a lot of stuff in this one, but couldn't help it. I too took an Adderall yesterday, and
I did too.
Went down some
Oh,
weird
really?
tangents. Yeah.
I need to get in on this.
We're all on drugs, Mike.
You
Get
know
on
what's
drugs
weird with
us.
me right now? It's like I just noticed my tongue exists or something, and I can't put it in a comfortable spot because I have taken Adderall
Interesting.
3 days in a row. I keep mashing it against my teeth, and it just
Fascinating.
feels like it's too long, and it's because I'm on Adderall, and it's
Okay.
driving me crazy.
Yeah.
So this was something Kira showed me. This was a bunch of wolf pups one year that were all in a big puppy pile in Yellowstone.
Pretty cute.
That's really
pretty
cute.
cute.
Very cute.
Yeah.
All right.
What would happen if
Okay.
you laid in the middle of that pile?
They would probably all just scramble.
Oh,
Get out of
eternal
there.
happiness, I think.
And their parents probably wouldn't be happy with you. Yeah, but it'd be worth it.
Well, next time, we'll talk about maybe red pandas next time, Sammy. You got to come
Yeah,
back.
something.
Yeah.
I'll find something f***ed up about red pandas. when somebody comes back.
Oh, I want to hear their dirtiest, darkest secrets.
All right. Thanks so much, Sammy, for joining us again. Sammy's podcast is Too Scary Didn't Watch, one of my all-time favorite podcasts. Give it a listen. We love it. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Thank you guys for having me back. I always have a blast learning horrible things that I'll never forget.
Perfect. All right. We'll see you guys.
See
Bye.
ya. Love ya.
Bye.
Good job, Wes.